Welcome to this Wednesday's weekly briefing. Joe and Matt are on a roll. This is like, what is this, part three of a three-part series you guys have kind of put together, talking about this sales process and having your brand and your presentation be sticky. So I get to be in the beautiful position today of being an observer and a listener, just like many of you. But I'll be reading the chats and what have you, because I know Ryan's going to be chatting away, that he doesn't help it. But
It is
thanks, guys, for
part
making
three
this
of a
happen.
part three of a substitute teacher series where Matt and I have been having fun while Tim's gallivanting off in Europe, and now he's here to check the work, which is a little bit nerve wracking and a little bit like research.
Right.
We're gonna have a good conversation today.
And then the sales process is an
Great.
endless series. I don't know if we may go beyond three. Let's just see where Tim's plane tickets take him next and how many more classes we're filling in. But we thought as part of,
You guys are great.
the Joe and Matt trilogy, being memorable is really important. And we've been talking about, what it takes to move beyond a delivery narrative. And today we really want to talk about how your words and your what you've presented will keep selling once you've finished the presentation and once the laptops are closed.
And what we
Let's do
talked
it,
about
Matt.
last week, yeah, we picked up on delivery narratives because it is both the most common and the easiest way to see. We're going to talk about things like what you've done. Let me show you the work we've done. Isn't it incredible? Talk about the work we aspire to do with the great talent. We can get into our proprietary processes, the people we have, and the things we believe make work great. To us, all of these boil down to the we do X for work. There's nothing wrong with these per se, in that they indicate something useful about your studio. The problem with that Matt and I kind of picked up on last week is that they just make you forget.
Yeah, and a lot of people on LinkedIn are talking about you need to tell people how valuable you are. You need to show your value, why people should work for you. And so that's what I'm talking about. How do you get to that? How do you deliver this value? Because what everyone wants to move is beyond a delivery narrative and into a value narrative, so people understand why they should be working with you and why you're worth it.
Yeah, and I'll pick up again just sort of the thread from last week. The why is as important as the what. A, because it's going to make you stickier and help you sell it. And B, because you're not likely going to be in the room when the decision maker makes the decision. They're going to look at a bunch of bids, look at a bunch of RFP responses, and the vibe's got to be right, the price has got to be right. But the firm who said the thing or demonstrated the thing that was the most memorable the sort of conversation, it's the presentation is over, is going to be the one who carries through the internal conversations where you're. So this isn't just an idealistic version of the view that we should do. It's just about making sure people forget you when you don't get to be.
Yeah. We should probably check though. Has anyone been awarded a job on the moment? Like, has anyone finished the deck and then had their hand shaken and said, "You got it"? Well, Ryan Summers has, of course he
Yeah. Jared.
It also was the worst client.
There it is.
So don't be careful what you wish for.
That helps. Thanks for providing needed context. And surprise, Ryan, we're going to talk about you later in the third person like you're not here. So thanks for joining. Stay tuned.
Yeah.
Let's talk about value narrative then. So what we think is really interesting about delivery narrative, again, they are not inherently bad and they're not inherently things you shouldn't understand. But at the intersection of multiple delivery narratives are value narratives that your studio can not only use, but rest on consistently to tell stories that are interesting, tell stories that are memorable, tell stories that are repeatable, you can go back to it. So we've put them on a couple of axes to help you see sort of the four types of core value narratives, pardon me, that we think studios can tap into to tell. You want to talk about legacy, Matt?
Sure. I mean, you're talking about what you've done, all the great things you've done, and I guess one way we thought of talking about these different different aspects was to actually talk about some specific companies. So if you talk about what you've done, Swarovski is an excellent example of this. Swarovski, they do all the Marvel titles. So when Swarovski go into a pitch, they can say, well, we'll give you that Marvel magic. You can have some of that Marvel stuff. And that's where your portfolio opens doors and everyone goes, well, if they can deal with Marvel, they can deal with me. Um, I'm not as hectic. The budgets aren't as big, but I want that. I want that magic stuff that they did for them.
Will you pop back one slide real quick? Sorry, Ryan. Knew that would happen. What's interesting about that, though, it's not just that they have a pattern of work that they've delivered, it's that it's based on a belief in the entertainment value of the main title and what that entertainment value can do to brands and studios and properties outside of a main title. That intersection of a core belief and a core pattern of delivering awesome work allows for us to use that legacy, tell a very interesting. Fortunate to know a little bit of that firsthand. But so that's what I mean when we talk about a value narrative, that there's an intersection of a core belief and a core sort of competency backed up by a pattern of delivering work that creates a narrative that's very. I think right below that, when we talk about Matt's thing, secret sauce, there is another value narrative. Again, it rests on a pattern of delivering quality work over. All the best studios deliver quality work over time. All of your studios do that. There are unique ways of working. There are proprietary processes. There are ways that specific people interact to make magic happen. And I think Matt knows a lot about, and that's kind of what we're calling secret.
Yeah. And in an example, we use Buck as a great example. Like, it's obvious what their secret sauce is. They've got 600 weapons around the world. They've got connections to all these different platforms. That they're more than just a motion design studio. They can help you work on brand. They can help you work on strategy. Obviously, you can't do all these things because you don't have 600 people and a variety of businesses that you've pulled together into a holding company. But you may have other unique qualities which you can focus on one of them. It's like the fact that you did work in a branding studio and you understand how these things fit together. Maybe you've got a background in engineering, whatever the parts of your background and what you've brought to it before setting up a company or the specific angle of work that you work in, that's where your secret sauce comes in and it makes you more than just another motion design studio.
There are some segments in our industry it's required to do that, right? Like if you're a visual effects company, an editorial company, something like that, that you clearly have a method or a process that people are banking on and hiring you for. So it's very legitimate to put yourself out there in that way. Sure, it's delivery focused, but that's the segment of the industry you're in. You want to push that as much as possible.
Yeah, and you can help people how to be different in that category. Like if you're big on financial services work, you know what boring looks like. So you can help people stretch above that and not be boring and be challenging or interesting and engaging.
That's awesome. I want to pick up, I think financial services is a really interesting example, Matt. It's not just boring, it's regulated. It's a tightly regulated industry with a lot of specifics you have to hit. There are a lot of ways that secret sauce can come to fruition in a value narrative that are not just, we did a thing that nobody else could do. That we're very, very good at a very, very specific thing that we have done over and over, and we're exceptionally competent in it. And so when I think about, wow, yes, they have 600 million people, but like, raise your hand if your studio has ever gone into a triple bid and then found out what's in it, and then you just lost, and you're like, why'd they even put me in there? They were just going to get the mark. It's because when you give a job to them, it is going to be done. It's certainly going to be done by one of a million people, but it's going, or a group of a million people, but it's going to be done a very consistent way. You trust the consistency of the output and the work product based on both their legacy and the clarity of the way. And so that's what we mean by secret sauce. And so when we're asking you all to evaluate your secret sauce, don't get lost in it being something highfalutin and something that's so operational that maybe even hard to understand. It can be the simplest, most free, and Matt, to your point, even the most boring thing ever. But if you do it exceptionally well, you're never going to miss. You can be selling against that.
We talk about point of view or taste next, Joe?
Oh, let's talk taste because I'm not going to be able to stop once we get on point of view. We've always
Yeah.
had point three views.
So, like taste, we're using like an example, like laundry. When you look at how laundry sells himself, you look at PJ out there showing what he loves. He wears his influences on his sleeve. He it's really obvious what they like, and then it's really obvious that they have taste, that they're not afraid to show that they're designers who like a particular thing or that they're deeply immersed in that culture they want. And I think taste, everyone talks about taste being one of the most important aspects you need as a designer right now. Like taste is what's going to reach beyond AI because no one can quantify that yet. There's no algorithm to predict your taste. And it is something that sets you apart because it's made of more than just a bunch of current trends. It's made of all your experience as a designer to date. It's made of life experiences to date. It's a multifaceted thing that's hard to pinpoint, but impossible to ignore, I think.
Yeah, I'd say like an easy example using laundry is that when I was walking around in Barcelona, there was a billboard, and the image of the billboard was PJ Richardson's an image from PJ Richardson's Instagram feed, and it was basically a nod to the artwork that he creates. But to be specific, although he's creating that in original art in his Instagram, he's doing that to market laundry. Like it comes back to the type of work that he does and the specific taste that they have and specific work that they've done. So he stretched that so far out there that it's seen as original work. He's created a book of a lot of those images, but it comes back to how he does what he does, and specifically as moving towards the what you want to do kind of a way of doing it. He's future projecting the kind of work he wants to do and clients he wants to have. So it's a great example.
And I'm hearing a lot of conversation about taste, sort of as we all are right now. It's because it's subjective inherently. It's particularly difficult to define. And I don't know that I have a definition, but I want to take a stab at it from both. And one is an articulation of what you believe excellence looks like in your field or in your domain. And so the idea that a studio, a founder, or sort of like a voice within that studio is articulating with consistency and what they believe excellence looks like in their domain is something that's going to allow them to become known because of that consistency. And so, Ryan, I think the point that you put in the chat, studios becoming known is about consistency. And so having the comfort and confidence to articulate that we have a belief in what excellence is going to go a longer way than just shouting that robots are bad and humans are good. And as we transition into point of view, we can talk about how having that opinion is fine, but it's not enough. And so reflecting on taste and where your studio can fall, I ask each of you to think about what's your articulation of excellence in your domain and how can you take some ownership.
Yeah, and one of the things I explore in Rekindle is helping people actually articulate their taste. I've been looking a lot into sommeliers and people who, coffee sommeliers or wine sommeliers. And you know that when you hear someone talk about a new coffee, they start talking about notes of oak or notes of blueberry or like all these terms which seem a bit abstract, but they are actually worked into a framework. So when someone says this coffee tastes fruity or this coffee tastes light and volcanic. It's actually part of a circular framework in which you can go, well, if it tastes fruity, it might taste like strawberry, and then that might taste summery, and that might make it appropriate, that might make it light, so that they're not just pulling words out of a barrel. Like there is actually a logic worked out to these things. And it's the same with wine tasting. People use these words to go, it's a bit more this than that. And they work out their own personal scales. What I've been thinking about is that a lot of us never actually spend the time to think about what are the words that matter to us individually. So if you are describing abstract images or things that people haven't imagined yet, have you actually worked out the words that you want to use on either end of the scale to say it's a bit more this and it's a bit more that? None of us really do that because we feel it and we pride ourselves on being visual thinkers. But when we were thinking about this today, what's being memorable is if you can say this is a bit more zebra than lion, and they go, "Oh yeah, the animal guy." Like that's being memorable. Like instantly, that's something that they're going to remember, and that's just coming from how you described your work and how you described this thing that no one could imagine in a way that they could hang on to, rather than going, "I'm just going to keep throwing images at you until you submit and realize that I'm the best image maker out of all these other image makers that you want to give this job to."
And so very similarly, when we think about that and pushing toward the future, I do want to talk about point of view. Um, Point of view is inherently public. There's a difference between an opinion and a point of view. There are several, one of which is making it public. But the other is not just reacting to what's happening of the time. It's asserting a vision for what the future could look like, in which that future is better for you, for your client, for the market, and for your domain writ large. And so when we think about an example of that, Ryan, I'm sorry, brother, we should have given you a heads up that we threw your headshot in there. But one of the things, both in public and in private, that we all sort of didn't is your ability to not just look at what's going on in the present and say, "Hey, it used to be better this way. Robots are stupid and people are good." It's that in the future, this needs to change. Our industry needs to change in X, Y, Z material ways so that it is better for all parties. And so, as you all know, if you've been listening to me for the past year or so, I believe so strongly that point of view is one of your memorable tools in your toolkit because precisely it's forward thinking. Our job as creative firms is to help our clients to be forward thinking in a way that they simply can't because of the ways that they're different. So the questions for me are at the intersection of what do you believe about creativity? What do you believe about your specific domains and the categories in which you execute it? And then how should that be better? And what does that actually mean to the people you work with? So when you do work, and when you can get to those articulations and start against them, you're living in a different territory when it comes to memory. So you feel really strongly that along with taste, it was a thing that you.
I'm going to take the picture of Ryan so it doesn't feel self-conscious. But I also think Ryan is a great example of someone who connects their tastes to a point of view. And I think, like you do keys and curves. You're out there showing the work that you think is excellent and that you love, but you're also making connections between different points of different works and saying this is happening in this part of the industry and this reflects to this part of the industry. I think like the way that you are talking about broadcast design and motion design, but then also talking about animated feature films. And like not many people connect those two different worlds, but there are things that we can learn from those different things. There are things that we can see both creatively and then both as business trends, which is what is important when you start bringing what you love into how you it's just actually a really easy way to start to get your point of view out there because you're already very passionate about it. You've already spent so long watching these things and realizing why you love these things. It's just giving yourself the words and the permission to start putting these things together and using them as case points for what's going on in the industry.
Can we admit, Matt, that it was so important to do that in a group and and practice it? It really was. It's one thing to be isolated in a bubble thinking about all these words, but if you've never had to say it out loud, you're out of practice. You're not going to find those words when you need them.
Yeah.
And we had the group and Rekindle do it week after week and week. Ollie, you were one of the Rekindle people. And after a while, we start becoming more and more familiar with those words, and it felt more natural to us. But in this point of view, it's always great to have a good group of people to bounce those ideas off of, try a little bit of practice, try to get more and more clear with your point of view so that when it becomes more known and more public, you actually have worked out the kinks instead of soften it and then have it just end up back where you started.
Yeah, and it was really interesting actually working it out with other, 3 different studios doing it at the same time, because that's when you could actually see the difference between each of your work. And you could go, oh, right, I get why I'm not Ollie, because he does these things. He works with systems, and I'm all about, seeing the difference between Roxbox and Bien. You might put their work together, and if you showed your mum, she might go, oh, they both make animations. But when you actually put the people next to it and they're talking about their works, and they start putting those words next to each other, you really see the difference, and you can really go, oh, I get why we stand out, and I get how we can represent that difference to someone else. And I think the first thing we did also was to just cross out all the generic words. Like, you look at this matrix of words, anything you've heard too much, let's just scrap that straight away and start to find new words that you can own and that you're comfortable saying.
Yeah, that's where we kick people's butt. We got rid of words they can't use anymore. And then you gotta like stretch your thought process and your imagination
Yeah.
further. It's great.
Right. So can we talk about how to action all this?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Ali.
Oh, Ali. Yep.
Also, the rap that you guys did. So Matt and Tim actually rapped on, the Rekindle. Just want to say that, and it was probably my favorite thing I've ever heard in my whole life. So yeah, that was the best part of it for me. Just saying.
Yeah,
were we the Beastie Boys?
We put Buck's positioning statement into ChatGPT in the style of the Beastie Boys, and then we wrapped it. I think we did a pretty good job.
Is that recorded somewhere?
That is recorded. Yeah, we'll play that at a special time. But yeah,
I think it's in deep archive, Ollie. I don't think anyone can find it. It's all lost somewhere in the deep archive.
Make it public.
So how do we get there, Joe? Let's talk about the different ways of getting to being memorable.
Yeah. So 3 things we have to do. And the first, surprise, is be self-aware about where we fit. So in general, we have to take a hard look internally at our studio, at our firm, and ask which value narrative is the primary value narrative that we are best equipped to tell. There's a possibility that we can tell multiple and we will get there. But is it a legacy narrative? Is it a secret sauce narrative? Is it a taste narrative? Or is it a point of view? And the way we do that is not just looking back and saying, hey, what's the most interesting thing I think I can say about myself? Looking back on our past work, where we've been successful and where we have been happy delivering the work for clients, and look for the patterns we can. That could be within a specific category, could be within a specific type of work, a type of deliverable set, main title, TV spots, whatever it is. But let's find the points of consistency. Are they in the work? Are they in the process? Are they in the category? Or are they in the strategy and the problem solving? And ask ourselves what is the most interesting about them. And then we got to ask ourselves, what's the relationship between what we've done and what we want to do? And then find our quadrant. Are we a left quadrant studio or are we a right quadrant studio? And pick from there. And so I think looking in the mirror, taking a good hard look is the very first step to establishing an honest value narrative that we can build on. And not just a value narrative that I told you I think is the most interesting, one that comes truly from you that you can sell against under pressure and clients put you on the spot.
Yeah, you've got to be comfortable saying it. It's like you see people and they've got a positioning statement that they've worked really hard on. They've got these magic words, and they come into a room saying, "We are the wizards of motion, and we will blow your minds," or something. And it's like you would never ever say that. And if you can't say it to your mum or your mom, you shouldn't say it. You shouldn't. And you could put it on your website, but don't touch it. We're trying to find you things that you're comfortable saying. And that's given that this is a highly introverted industry in the first place. So it's a stretch to step out of your comfort zone. So you've got to make it as comfortable for you to be there.
So let's say you've got a little bit of clarity. Right? Let's say you have done 20 jobs in the last 10 years in a specific category in a specific way. Maybe you're a secret sauce firm, but maybe you're a legacy firm. We are the firm that delivers the world's best main titles for action entertainment, as long as we're there. That's a really nice legacy narrative to create. We know in and out what defines excellence in this game. That's awesome. If that were the only thing you wanted to do for the rest of your studios and business, then you've got one value narrative and you can find it. Assuming, like just about everybody right now, you need to win different types of work from different types of clients and different types of categories. Your value narrative has to be able to flex, has to be able to. How do we do that? We have to define where we can push and where we can deliver with creative. You've got a really, really high bar. animation in motion, you might have something very interesting to say that can articulate your taste. If you deliver with a proprietary process that makes sure you're always on time and in budget, you've probably got something really interesting to say about your cost, and you can push from legacy to people. But I think steps 1 and step 2, step part of it, look, step 1 and step 2 are both about asking yourself, where are you strong and where can you push honestly and intently to tell a story that's true.
And then the taste is that contemporary X factor that you're connecting these things to make it relevant to the particular pitch or the trend that you are associating yourself with. But what if you come at it the other way, Joe? What if you start with the taste, but then work back to the legacy?
Yeah, I think, Brian, you even dropped something similar to this in the chat. If you are kind of a young challenger studio, right, you've got a very clear way that you want to articulate excellence. You need to use a project, 2 projects, 3 projects to establish a pattern and then articulate that pattern. A pattern needn't be no more than 3. In fact, that's kind of sort of the minimum for remembering one story over and over again is 3 things. We did XYZ really well for client A, client B, and client C. You've articulated your taste and put that out in the world. Now you can tell the legacy narrative by asserting that you were sort of demonstrating your taste in a repeatable manner. And you can essentially, like I call it the pufferfish strategy, you can act a little bit bigger than you are. But the truth is that you can demonstrate a pattern by just asserting that the pattern is. That's how we can grow forward, even as a small studio, even with one whose sort of like body of work.
Definitely.
And then, sorry.
No, you go, Joe. I'm going to click to the dog food slide.
Oh, I was going to say always, if you recognize a point of view in yourself that matches up with your student, you're aiming to articulate the way the work should be, make sure that it is aligned with the way that your team executes the work. Start talking about it. This is the time to have a point of view. Our industry is hungry for it because we know to challenge yourself to put that out in the world. It's the best time ever for our industry to have a point of view. As you all know, I'm back, but I can't say enough about it being the right time for a point of view.
And the reason we wanted to talk about this is because quite often you sit down to have a point of view, but then you just draw up a big blank. You might be all fired up when you look at someone else's work, but when it comes talking about your own, you suddenly go, oh, it's gone. I think what we wanted to show is they come from different places, and they're not just one thing. And once you've got that, is this in your pitches? Is it in your presentations? Is it in your marketing? Because you've got to eat your own dog food. And really, the question is, when you've imagined yourself as this sort of person, you've put yourself out there as a sort of taste. Just asking that question, like, would you buy this from you? Are you expressing this magic in your presentation, or is your presentation still stuck in that value narrative, delivery narrative, rather than the value one?
And Matt, you and I spend a lot of time talking about pitches. I love a pitch, and I love getting really in there and working on your deck. And I think you and I can talk about decks forever. Sometimes we're talking about pitches. Sometimes we're talking about sales and marketing materials. But for me, it is every touch point that a prospective client might see, from your website, your email signature, to your pitch and presentation materials, to the way you and your team speak. And I think that goes back to our conversation about words and the way we put value. Words that you use and the words that your team uses when they do, they need to be the dog. You all need to be eating it. It needs to bleed through everything from you if you're really going to articulate a value narrative and then also deliver against it. And so I can't say enough that the power of words to help connect all of it is really, really strong.
Yeah. And you've got to spend
in
some time.
other words, people can just hear your BS right away, right? That's what eat your own dog food when it comes to your words is like, just don't fill the voids with a bunch of bullshit that nobody can is meaningless. People can hear it right away, but a strong point of view and a belief in your product, a belief in your method, and what the value really is. It's like that's people won't dispute that.
And I would say too, Tim, there is not, it is not black and white. There is not sales bullshit and eating your own dog food, and they exist in binding. There may be a narrative that is true in your heart that you forgot to teach your team, right? That your team doesn't know inside of the note, that you believe you are trying to deliver when you are selling a project to a prospect, but that your team does not deliver when you walk away to sell the next thing and they have to go make. So
Yeah.
when we talk about eating your own food, that is a sales story and it is also a culture story. It needs to be true from point A to point B in the process with your studio if you are going to trade them.
Yeah, getting your team comfortable using those words too is another, like, that's the next challenge, is like you don't want to just be out there flying this flag by yourself. You want to make sure that when your art director is at that film screening, they're telling the right story. It's like, and I even want to get my mum telling the right story, what I do about my own career. Like she tells her friends, "Oh, Matt does blah blah blah." It's like, "No, mum, that we did that 3 years ago. I do this now," and it's a different thing. You know, it's sort of the same thing, but it's also completely different. And if you can find those words and make them easy for other people to share, that's the good thing about telling stories, is they're viral, they become memeable, they start telling themselves, and you don't need to be there to tell them all the time.
None of us will ever accomplish the goal of having our mothers understand what we do for a living.
That's the
Except for
holy
Mary,
grail.
maybe Ollie. Ollie's mom is like the one. If you get Ollie's mom to understand it, she's like Instagram famous. That would be the goal.
Danny Rabushkin's mom does.
Danny does.
He was on the news back in Ireland recently for that whole Waymo, or the Waymo thing. So yeah, she's very high tech. She knows exactly what we're
Yeah.
doing. You know, yeah, she's very high tech.
Wow, I want to get your mom on the next call.
Yeah.
You drink you under the table. That's what happened.
Ah, so good. But yeah, that is the holy grail. If your mother can understand it and explain it, then you've done your job really well.
Yeah. Or you're not doing your job very well because it's too simple of a job that your mom can explain it.
I'm gonna do a sneaky plug because I've got the deck. But we're gonna do Rekindle again. It's gonna come in July. So if you want help finding these words in a sharing creative environment, putting it out there. Gonna start gently putting my words out there and getting people to sign up. So you'll hear more about that. But it's all about unleashing your taste so you can ignite opinions, because it's something everyone says you need, but it's not easy to do. It doesn't happen straight away, and it happens with some work, and it happens with bouncing off other people who will or won't buy your bullshit.
Yeah, it's quite literally sommelier training, wasn't it? It just really, really kind of worked that
Yeah.
the secret sauce of what you do specifically, and then the words to explain it as clear as possible. But what I love about the sommelier as a metaphor is most of us know that they're using the same words. The words are familiar if you ever talk to a coffee sommelier or wine sommelier, but they put an order to them, a structure to them, so you understand what this one bottle might be and how that one bottle would be different from any other bottle. So it's not complicated, it's systematic, and it's not just made up. It has structure to it, but the ability to navigate through. So when you're talking to a certain client, you can actually express yourself for that client differently from a different client, and always differentiate yourself from others. So it's a really great program that way.
And I was thinking about the sommelier metaphor more this week, and I was thinking, like, what's interesting is when someone's selling you a nice bottle of wine, they're not even showing you the label. Like, they're literally just telling you it comes from Italy, it goes well with fish, it tastes like grapes, it has notes of summer, smells like apricots, and that's making you go, maybe I'll spend twice as much as I was planning to spend. And it is literally some abstract terms and spending 30 seconds with someone who's looked at you and gone, yeah, he's on a date and he needs to impress someone, so he needs to buy a more expensive thing. And sort of, I think that's what interesting about, and they call it selling at the table. It's that final mile. Once you've got someone to the restaurant, you've shown them the thing. It's like, how are you going to upsell them on the final bit? So it's associated to taste, but I think there's a lot to learn from sommeliers, and how can you make sure that your team of your sommeliers out there saying the right words so everyone's getting fries with that?
Love it. Well, any thoughts, any last minute questions or testimonies of when this has worked or challenges when it hasn't? Brian, thanks for going along with our example today.
I'm just glad I was here to
Being good sport.
witness myself.
I thought it was a good headshot. I picked that one because you were laughing, and the other ones you didn't need to be like a serious person.
Yeah,
So
that's a
I think
good.
more people should be laughing.
Good point. Yeah, you could be the studio that laughs. No one's the studio that laughs.
No.
I'm 2020.
That's great. Well, thank you all for joining us today. So great to have you on the weekly briefing. Matt and Joe, thanks for doing a great job over the last few weeks filling in, but also just kind of keep the conversation going. I know that this is important, and it's part of the bigger picture of how to be very relevant in this time of change and the pivots that are happening. So I know some of this is coming from your own small group work that you're doing. You guys each have your own small groups as well as me, and hearing what people are up against and then trying to solve those problems with them. So I do appreciate you guys pitching in and being part of the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a blast. Substitute teachers signing off for now. School's out for summer, if you will. You Alice Cooper.
Actually, Joe and I have to start our. We're in Kansas City. I'm in Kansas City right now, and I'll prove it to you. Joe is actually right across the room there.
Hi, everybody.
And we're about ready to start our cohort gathering here in Kansas City. So we got to get started.
Are all bars in Kansas City that crowded?
Yeah, we got the legit rooms over there. We're in the quiet room, so we can do the weekly briefing. But thanks for pulling that out, Matt. I appreciate you doing
Thanks for making me feel good about the crowd I drummed up, Matt. Cool move.
Oh, they're coming. I know it's like an hour or two away.
Yeah. We're just warming up. That's all we're doing.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you all. You have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next week on the weekly briefing. Thanks for being here. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate you all.
Everybody.